There you go. So, this is Senate Appropriations, and we're continuing, testimony on the 25 budget, and we have, Susan Gary Ward, who is here on behalf of, the Department of Aging and Independent Living. I asked if we could, I guess I wanted to skip to about page 41. There's a lot of information that has been provided here. And I know this is your section of the budget. Is that true
Well,
or not?
I don't, we'll see.
I'll get out my chart if you
I have
like.
the chart, I
I think Alice Nick's.
Oh, no, she was fishing wildlife.
That's true, yes.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we, okay.
She'd have
So-
to deal with Salisbury Dam, Salisbury Fish Hatchery.
So I'm going to, turn it over, to Megan and, see if we can go through. I thought it was looking like this was the first page that really got into your budget.
Yes,
detail.
Madam Chair, and we will start around on page 40. So for the record, I'm Megan Kearney Ward, the interim commissioner at the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living. And I am here with our financial director, Bill Kelly, and we also have Rebecca Silbernagel, our principal assistant. When I need help, they are here. So we skipped over a section that would be great at a later date, if you would take a peek at it, because it covers our department priorities and highlights, talks a little more about some of the detail in each section of our division, and there are hyperlinks to some important information that you may want to read. But for today's testimony, we'll focus on the budget, and then I will pause to talk a little more on those sections that are policy related, so I can fill you in where the narrative talked about it in the earlier section.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, so starting on page 40, you will see a summary fact sheet of our overall budget. So Dale's 25 proposed budget is 703 million. And you do see the breakdown below that of what portion of that budget is general fund, global commitment, federal funds, and special and interdepartmental funds. You'll see the vast majority is global commitment, 88%. Below that is a table. If you are interested in the breakdown by our division, so we have 5 divisions: developmental disability, adult services, vocational rehabilitation, also known as higher ability, division for the blind and visually impaired, licensing and protection, and then the commissioner's office. If we jump to the next page on 41, it's where the excitement starts. So we have 5 division and section. Following the ups and downs, you will see the total change for the recommended budget is around $35 million. So starting with the administration and support section,
That's gross.
that's gross, correct. So starting with section B329, you will see a net increase of $2.4 million. So that's our light fund, salary, fringe, internal services. And if you'd like, I'll just keep going unless you stop me. Okay.
I'll look for questions.
You'll see the next section is the Adult Services Division grants, section B330. And there are 2 changes here. The first one is the support and services at home, the SASH funding. You saw that in BAA, and this is brought over for our base budget at $541,000. You'll then see something called child.
Well, we know what it is.
You know what the child care contribution
I don't
is.
know. I think that's
That appears a few times in our budget.
because payroll.
It's a payroll associated tax specific to our independent direct support workers. So those are consumer directed employees that people hire in our Medicaid programs through an intermediary.
So Eris would be taking this.
Correct. And so for this portion, it's about $9,800 for an increase for childcare contributions. The next 2 sections have no changes for fiscal year 25. That's the blind and visually impaired grants and vocational rehabilitation. That brings us to page 42.
When there's no change,
Ian's going on.
Does that mean there's outside of pay act kind of things? Because I assume there would be some change in wages or something.
Like for VR, for example.
If I'm correct, and I will look to Bill on this one, it's in our administration and support.
Yeah, not every department is organized the way we are. All our administrative costs are in the one appropriation.
Oh,
It used to be the way for social welfare.
Yeah.
So we see it different ways, depending on. But it's a good question.
Great.
Mm.
Okay.
And most of VR is federal.
That's
Still. Most of them. Are other questions on that page? Keep moving.
okay. The next section is specific to the Developmental Services Grants Appropriation B333. And the first change you'll see is the annual DS caseload increase. So this year it's equivalent to,
New grads.
these are new caseload and new increases in care plans, and the average 3-year estimate for about 329 people at about 9 million. And what you'll see in here is an amount that is also balanced by the equity fund. So the equity fund, where those service dollar amounts that are not used go back through the equity process and are used to fund services, balances out that increase. And so that's the net amount of $9 million. The second one is similar but specific to DS Public Safety caseload in Act 248. So those are the people who are have very high care plans.
And we did do something in budget adjustment for that case as well.
Did we have an increase?
Not this year,
Is it 248?
not this year.
Oh, I don't know why. We did.
Last year.
Oh, maybe that's.
So this projected estimate is approximately 15 people at a total of 1.9 million. Number 3 is the commercial policy workers' comp premium decrease. And the reason it's a decrease, this is also specific to the independent direct support workers who are hired through ARIS. And for this program, there's a small decline in the workers' comp premium. So this goes down by $50,000. And then again, number 4, the same child care contribution, but for this program at about $180,000. Moving on to the brain injury program, section B334, we have just the child care contribution at about $1,100.
So what you're doing is funding the cost of that payroll, as opposed to having them absorb it as a payroll deduction.
That's correct, Madam
You're
Chair.
protecting the provider from that cost.
Correct. If we didn't do this, it would come out of their wages, and they would feel that. So we're increasing the Medicaid rate to absorb that.
And just as some background, ARIS is really a payroll entity that's contracted. So oftentimes individuals will hire someone, but to ask someone with a disability to deal with the social security and the taxes and so forth when you have that employee relationship. This is put in place a long time ago. So a lot of people say they think they're employed by ARIS, but ARIS is just, it's a payroll company and they do payroll for all kinds of entities.
We would call them an intermediary. And sometimes people think the state is the employer, and we want to stay far away from that. So we are not the employer, but they are the payroll agent for the individual or their surrogate.
And they have done this for 25 years, maybe. And it's a long time.
It's a great option for a lot of people.
Absolutely. All right, now we're down to the big one here.
We are down to the big one. So the Choices for Care program, which is section B334.1. We start with the statutory nursing home inflationary rate increase. You may recall that there's statutory requirements that we do annual inflationary increases. So that's what this is at 4.9 million. And then the next item is new. We would consider this both a financial impact and a policy issue for Dale. So you may recall in BAA, we had quite a bit of extraordinary financial relief from nursing facilities over the year, and so you need to pay those as they come. This proposes to make some changes to the nursing facility rate method that caps certain things that have been detrimental to the financial stability of nursing homes. And so the total amount we're asking for is 9.9 million, and that goes into 4 things. One is a minimum occupancy change. So this is a long-standing challenge with this cap that is put on the percentage of utilization in nursing homes. So in the old days, there was encouragement to be 90% full. We've seen that nursing homes are closer to 80 on average. A huge decline below that in the COVID times, but when that happened, nursing facilities are penalized. And so you could consider that part of the pressure that happens when EFRs occur. The other part of this, so that accounts for about $7 million of this increase, that one item, changing from
And you did a
90%
report.
to 80%, yes, and there's a report that describes that in detail. The other items are around cost caps. So there are built-in cost caps, one's for nursing, resident days, and
Indirect.
indirect, thank you. Indirect costs, so it would change those cost caps so that it's more modern, frankly, because they're way outdated, about 10 years. And this would allow for some higher costs in those areas without penalty.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many nursing homes will be affected?
Oh, by the change in the rate method?
But
I
the
think all of them.
nursing home cap,
Oh,
This, so the cost caps are applied across the board in the rate setting method, in the rules.
including the those that are in connected with hospitals.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's why we think this is,
but those caps are only in certain concepts, right?
there are some, these are the 3 cost caps that we think would have the most impact as far as cost caps are concerned. There is a report specific to the rate method, a real detailed breakdown of this information that was also submitted fairly recently that we can point you to.
Well, this should help with reducing the number of extraordinary relief. I mean, we're not paying it one way, we're been having to pay it through, which is
Well, that
more work.
I'd like to let her finish that, but you bring up a point. If this is 9 million, and I don't see in your list anything about extraordinary financial relief in here, and last year the extraordinary financial relief was $18 million. How do we think that an increase of 9.9 will make up for that? And we're already in the 24 budget, you recognize that in your budget that we need 17 million for that. I don't get the number. Because if 9 million is going more into rates, then you have extraordinary relief, and quite frankly, I raised this in here as we did the budget adjustment. Looking at the 10 that we know need extraordinary relief, knowing we got 5 months left to the year and we got 26 licensed facilities that haven't come in, I'll bet you we're gonna break by the 17 number. So I don't get
Maybe we'll all be
this.
paid in this fiscal year.
Right.
I suspect.
Well, but I don't see a line for extraordinary relief in here, but we're only increasing rates here by something less than 10 million.
So, thank you, Senator. I will let Bill answer part of that, but I also want to point out a couple of things. Last year was a rebase year. And what that means is costs were rebased to 2022. And some nursing homes had big costs in 2022 related to nursing costs, for example. That's the big one, the contract nursing costs. Not all of them did. Some may have had increases the next year, so they weren't captured in that base year. So, but many nursing homes had a rebase that captured those bigger costs that they had in 2022. So the EFRs we've seen over the last couple of years since then are related to both the nursing costs, the items we've mentioned here. And it's possible we could see some additional EFRs. We're not going to totally eliminate EFRs. It's always been a part of the regulations and an option. There will be some facilities this year that did not get rebased last year that may still have some higher costs associated with nursing that would get captured in the next rebase, if that makes sense. So that's the only potential gap here, I believe, is really primarily that nursing cost for that group of nursing facilities. But what would be helpful is the report that was submitted shows the calculations across the industry. It doesn't name the facilities, but numbers them and just shows the breakdown by those items. So you can see across the board what's in that. But if Bill, you want to add around.
So you've got an inflationary increase, then you've got the stabilization, so.
Correct, that's what I was gonna add,
um,
so it's 15 million that we're adding for
Do you-
nursing homes.
Do you have in base a certain amount budgeted for the relief, emergency relief?
So, no, and we usually ask for that in BAA, and you take it year by year, you know.
As you know, when we passed, we did go with the 17 recommended, not what the House was proposing, which we couldn't figure out where that it was arrived at, but we also didn't feel that it was based on the information we had was a realistic adjustment, so that is still yet to be determined. Senator,
No, I'm just
Oh.
thinking about my question about number 3.
oh,
Okay.
oh, Bennington, I wonder
I
why.
wonder why.
Well, let's do it. Are we ready for
Yeah.
Bennington? Or
Did
do
you
wanna-
finish the 3 categories? We got to we did nursing, we did,
Resident and indirect.
okay.
And those cost cap adjustments are about 2.9 million in this figure. Question?
And then some would be, any of this reflected in the base that you're carrying forward through 24?
I'm gonna go for that.
Pardon me?
Well, I was just wondering if the 24 base appropriation that you're carrying forward actually reflected some of these higher costs, that's all. But
It's not the absolute level.
so
I'm not sure I quite understand the question,
It
but
doesn't
I
matter.
see Helen dying.
Yeah, I just need to Helen Lane, Vermont Healthcare Association, sorry, Madam Chair. I think you may have been creating confusion by saying there's a rebase of 2022, but there's a rebase of 2021, and so there's a year missing.
Okay,
So just to
correction.
cut off that confusion
Thank
before it
you.
goes further down that road, I think it was a misspeaking of the years.
So first of all, let me correct then what I said, because Helen's corrected me, that the rebase that happened was based on 21 costs, not 22 costs.
all right,
So the gap here is really the 22.
all right, and
Yeah.
now shall we go to Bennington?
Yes, let's go to Benny.
Field trip?
Well,
Well, you can have it if you'd like it.
what is eye care?
That's what the rest is.
Eye care is,
Eye care is the specialized nursing facility that is, eye care is the name of the business. It's purchasing Bennington Health and Rehab
from
Yeah, we know.
Genesis,
from Genesis
For
for
a
the
very
purpose of
specialized, elastic.
very specialized group.
Yes, and
It's
so
amazing to get that off the ground, because we've talked about it for years and
I
years.
think we should change it from Bennington's budgeted rate to
Oh,
whatever the name, whatever, we should call it what it is.
You don't like the attribution specifically to you?
Well, I think it makes it sound like we're bringing something home, but we're really bringing something for the state similar to, you know, specialized care facility.
No, it's true, it's the population being served there is very.
So
But I,
When does that become operational? Do you know, Dick?
as I think they,
the Madam Chair, the sale of the facility is expected to close on March first, on or around March first. And you're right, the new name is Mission Care at Bennington.
Oh,
it's better.
oh,
Yeah, and
we'll be sure to note
number
that.
3 on this line is specific to the adjustment of the whole Medicaid rate because they're opening a specialized service.
I mean, it's gonna be a wing at first, am I correct? I mean, they're not gonna throw the patients out that are there currently, I hope.
No, correct, Senator. They're not going to throw anyone out. This is an adjustment though to their facility-wide Medicaid rate for the purpose of starting up a new program. And that's a part of the standard nursing home rate setting model that they can receive that rate.
Here's my budget question. Certain amount of money is gonna be saved because many of these people were in institutions where Medicaid is not allowable, like prison. So as they come out of prison, the state is gonna save 50% to 60%, right? So who's gonna take that savings and how's it gonna be reinvested? I guess that's the question, because it's the same question I asked DCF minutes ago.
Recaptured? Well,
Well,
maybe
how
they're
do we
using,
recapture the money that's saved without it going somewhere, you know, into the bottom line, so we get a new bridge on I-89?
won't go there.
I'm not sure that can answer the whole question, Senator, but I can try.
Okay,
So, or I can reflect.
well,
on it.
how are we gonna keep
But-
track of what we save?
The savings would be on corrections particularly, right?
Exactly, and yet
Right.
corrections is, it may not show up because quickly the governor will capture the money and spend it.
Well, he probably already has in his budget. When is
Right.
it opening? In 25?
Yeah, so the property is the
Being-
property is closing in March.
Uh-huh.
They'll begin serving people shortly after that. It'll be within for Medicaid folks, it's within our Choices for Care budget, so that's what this pressure is for. It's to provide that rate increase for specialized service, and then in the amount of 2.3 million. And then 4 is for the incentive for each person who comes in, has a complex specialized
Oh my
need.
gosh, 4.8,
And then
4.9.
Yeah.
2.5 million. So this is the investment in doing the specialized care for these individuals. And some of them are coming from corrections. And that's a great question about like what happens to the funds at corrections. I don't have an answer for you there,
Be
but
sure to ask.
I bet it won't go to,
Well, I bet it's going somewhere to the agency bottom line to make the budget work.
I'm not gonna speak as for the agency or for corrections, but I just know the word savings and choice for care. Cost avoidance is not always saving, so I just caution the word
Well, but-
saving.
No,
if the person's in a correctional facility, it costs roughly $95,000 a year, according to the Department of Corrections, to house somebody in Vermont. Out of state is much different. I may be way off, and I still think
I
it's
think
more
it's
like
fine.
50,
I
but,
think so.
I think he said 90.
Well, it
Anyway,
might, depending
call
on
it
their
50.
nursing home level of care,
Let's
they
call
could be
it
very
50.
costly. Yeah.
And you've got this individual who's requiring, specialized services, dialysis, et cetera, They go to, what's the new name of it?
Mission
Mission
Care at Bennington.
Care, Benny.
I wrote it down.
The care will be, the dialysis will be at the local hospital, right around the corner. If you couldn't be closer. The care, for the dialysis, the care for the individual will be at Mission for Bennington, which will, 60% will be paid for by Medicaid. which was paying 0 before. So even if it's 50,000 per year, 60% of that will be paid by Medicare. That's a savings. And yeah, you see 2.3 million.
Well, maybe Rich is the better person to answer that because we're really talking about savings that are gonna accrue.
Right.
Or lower costs are gonna accrue in one department. Obviously,
But-
a portion of it goes over for this.
Which is great,
but
but
the
where do we
residual,
invest that money that's saved by correction?
well, I don't know, we can see if the.
So I,
Or does the government just put it into the bottom line?
Well, Rich Donahue perhaps could answer your question. Because she's the agent.
Oh, Rich is gonna answer my question.
Rich?
well,
Oh, yeah, he's,
Should he like a week?
no, Rich Donahue. who's the
Oh, I thought
CFO.
Rich,
No,
Rich West.
no, I'm saying because he's,
Well, I was giving him a week to do
because
it.
he's CFO for the entire agency. So
Understood.
so maybe he knows how that.
You know how we're gonna say it.
So
He's gonna tell you how the governor spent it, I suspect.
I will attempt to answer the question and I can follow up offline if it's not sufficient. In the 25 budget, there are no savings offsets that go to the bottom line or are assumed to go to the bottom line
In
and
DLC.
used elsewhere, correct?
Oh,
You
okay.
know, the healthcare, as you are all aware at DOC, is covered under the WellPAD contract. This is.
Oh, so that won't change that at cost then, because that's fixed.
And it's also a question of cost avoidance, as Bill stated, versus attributed costs that would otherwise occur in another department that would be theoretically saved and then attributed elsewhere.
So the answer is you haven't got anything to play with there.
There is, but
Well, we'll check that out. Okay,
it's
well,
real money.
at least we know what the cost is gonna be out of this budget, and it's actually much better care environment and long time coming. So we'll put that on our list
Is
when
there-
DOC comes in.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there legislation needed to do this? The governor doesn't have a right to commute sentences under our constitution. The only thing the governor can do is pardon people. And if they're life without parole, for example, then they need the service.
Senator, I'm not aware of any statute or rule that has to be
Well, I
changed
think
to
you
accommodate
mentioned-
this,
Well,
because there's the Department of Corrections has partnered with us since we started
so they'd still
planning.
be under correction supervision.
There would be probably
Okay.
different scenarios, and
Okay.
different people might be under supervision there, and will depend on the person, but they've actually been looking at their list of people who they think might be eligible for the last several months, and the last time I looked at that was a few months ago, there was about 20 people who could benefit thereabouts from.
Surprised at that.
Yeah, it could be more now, but that was around the
Be
number,
mostly Springfield out.
yes. Mhm.
Yeah, that's where they would be here. And then, so the 2, 3, and 4 go together, is that
3
right?
and 4 go, yes, Madam Chair, 3 and 4 go together. Also, should we move on?
Okay, this is the 5% for the groups that we annualized that we didn't include last in the list in this fiscal year.
Thank you. You got it. Number 5 is the 5% increase for those services, case management, flexible choices, adult family care, and moderate needs flex funding, in the amount for the full year of 1.8 million.
So, this would be where adult day would be.
Adult day received an increase last year, so they weren't captured in this.
No, I guess the
correction.
reason I'm bringing it up because we obviously had communication and you acknowledged that it was a $2 million reduction based on prior year's utilization. We've now gotten some information that says that we've got a waiting list. And so the question is not an inflationary increase or a change in the rate necessarily, it's just the fact that by making that reduction, I don't know what the waiting list looks like, but that's what we've heard from testimony. And maybe, Rich, you have more you want to add to that, but
So just, maybe I could clarify first, just to be clear, that's, yes, you're correct, Madam Chair, that's an issue we've heard. this is specific to a 5% that was given in 24.
No, I understand.
For this.
No,
So I
I-
wanna make sure there's no
No,
confusion.
well,
Okay.
okay, I understand,
Okay.
I've segued into a different, question, and that was, it has nothing to do with changing the rate, and actually, we gave a bit higher rate increase, in the Senate than was recommended in the study. But there was that reduction of 2 million, and, what we have heard is that because that's reduced the funding to these centers, they actually are not able to care for all the people who would like to care. And I don't know what that waiting looks like, whether it's around areas. I know that there are 2 areas where you had indicated that there was money to start up funding, startup programs, and Barry, I believe, is one. So I'm just wondering
Give a little bit of,
what your response is to what we've been hearing relative to that particular provider group.
I could add.
Bill, did you wanna add to
Sure,
that? And then-
then you can.
Okay.
So I just want to be careful that, there's always been a waiting list at the provider level for moderate needs. The eligibility criteria for moderate needs is very low. And so, the 2 million that was passed in the budget in the spring, that was a utilization budget to actuals adjustment. That even with the current waiting list, I'm still seeing the same trends fiscally that I did then when we did the reduction. So I just want to throw caution that because we reduced the 2 million, that's not the cause for the wait list. And this is the section that where moderate needs reduction occurred last spring.
Well, I'm just bringing it up, something I'm sure when, I think that's your section of the budget center, Wesley. That you'll be sitting down and understanding exactly what, was behind the comments in terms of what is causing the wait list and where it looks and what it looks like and so forth. And we do know there's an entitled group, obviously if you're nursing home level, it's an entitled program, not the case for moderate needs.
Okay.
So,
And I'll just add one more thing to that. When that adjustment that Bill just referred to, when that adjustment happened, it was done, not just across the board equally. It was, our program looked at each provider and their utilization at the point in time to be sure that that adjustment would not affect people already on the program. So there was I'm just trying to say. there
you're
was a
talking about the
thoughtful-
2 million
The
adjustment?
2 million adjustment was implemented in a way that did not cut services to anyone. As Bill said, it was an adjustment of underutilization. Not to say that a home may have, or an adult day provider might not have a wait list now. But when it was implemented, that's how the adjustment was made.
Understand. That's it.
I think we have just one more thing, I'll just say it out loud, and that's the child care contribution for the Choices for Care program at $156,000.
What is,
Somebody's
somebody does something on,
Somebody's on the thing and talking to somebody else.
That was an echo.
This-
what's an echo? It was
Oh, it's an
my
echo?
voice that was echoing.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Now I've forgotten exactly what I was going to say, and I'm sure it was very profound. Oh, yes, obviously with DS and the federal requirements around conflict free case management. Where are we there? And I gather that has the potential of adding cost as well. To comply with that federal requirement, which we have kind of pushed about as far as we can push, I would think. And then we're getting communications, obviously, from disabilities councils, obviously saying we're out of compliance, time is up, make it happen. So could you just tell us where we are relative to that requirement?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's actually a plan that includes developmental services choices for care as well in the brain injury program. They all have to comply with the same rule, and so we're working across the agency to be sure we're doing this unified and in the same manner to comply with the federal rules. And we're on a corrective action plan with the federal folks at CMS to be sure this is implemented by, I may want to look at my notes if you don't mind. I'm trying to remember if it's next July, but there's a runway that allows us to ramp up the plan over the next year. And there are several options that have been presented. We're just wrapping up some stakeholder input on that last round of input around the plan. And it looks a little bit different for each one of those providers, but for developmental services, the plan is to do a request for information first, fairly soon in the near future. That would give us information on the availability and interest in an independent case management agency to do the work. They would be actually looking for more than one, if there is more than one provider who's interested and able in doing that work. But it will take a good year to get that in place. So you do the RFP, you get it in place. And so we are complying with the timeline and process for CMS to comply with that.
But
corrective
obviously,
plan.
then if you're having to contract for that service, if it will add cost, to the program.
Correct, Madam Chair. And so I see that the implementation phase, so like I said, a kind of a runway of getting it stood up, is May 2025 through April of 2026. So April 2026 being the end game, we have to be done by.
May of 25.
So May 2025 through April 26 is the time we're taking to start implementing. We may, in some cases, depending on the program, decide to start making some adjustments earlier. It's going to depend on the readiness of the provider network. So, but for developmental services, that's the plan. And there is a handy PowerPoint slide for anybody who is interested.
You gave a presentation, I know that, and I couldn't attend it. And maybe I'm thinking people around the table probably don't know what I'm talking about. But it's a federal requirement, and it really is to assure that the providing agency, that there's a conflict there of what I think you might need for services, and then I turn around and give you those services as opposed to that independent evaluation of what you need under the program. So it's to create that independence or that conflict that is there, although we see it all over the place. I mean, when you go to the doctor says you need this and provides it, and so it's going to just add more cost because you've got to have this independent assessment to determine what services are provided or are to be provided by that agency. If I should have done that in a nutshell, but that's the thinking behind it.
Madam Chair, you have it right on. We have to be clear, there's nothing for the conflict of interest in our budget this year. Once that impact is evaluated, then we'll see for the future years.
And is that reimbursable under Medicaid?
The service related is
No, the assessment.
which assessment, Madam Chair?
The independent assessment that is done. In other words,
So the case management services is reimbursable under, yes, we're talking specifically about a case management service that would do the work, and that is reimbursable under Medicaid.
how you're putting out an RFP for an entity to do an assessment of the individual, right? And
It's actually case management, which could include the assessment and a number of different activities, yes.
okay, so your specialized service agencies right now, are doing the assessment and providing the services. Under this arrangement, a different entity would evaluate the individual and the services that are necessary, and then they would provide it, or the SSA would provide it, or they both would provide it, or who's doing case management, I guess. Because how many times do we pay for it? So this independent entity to create the conflict-free requirement, it's gotta be paid. And I would just wanna know, is that Medicaid matchable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the idea of having the independent agency is so that they will not be providing direct services, that will stay at the VA or FSA.
Otherwise, you're just creating a different conflict under their thinking. All right, well, we've chewed that one long enough. Any other questions? Okay. Well, obviously, you know, as we know, we give different, committee members different parts of the budget, and I think Senator Westman has done Dale. That's my recollection, although his memory seems to be fading.
I think he did nursing.
So I'm going to, suggest we move on to community broadband. Thank you very much for coming over.
Thank you, committee.
Yeah.
We'll probably have you in the committee as well.
Yes, I think you would, yeah, particularly around the conflict free.
Yeah.
I don't mind if I took
Yes,
away.
we have.
Good, thank you. I don't,
you are.
Pardon me? So day gets darker, it gets harder to see, and I'm.
I had a bit of an emergency and I had to.
oh, did you get it out?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Good. You're, we're doing community broadband. when you're done.
Okay, so you're. I think if I remember, and I should.
Then we
It's a
can talk.
Senator Dale, I guess it's the old one,
Then I
but you did have Dale.
So now I'm.
go
Do you
drink.
wanna, do you want a new version?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're live, I didn't realize we were live.
What was the?
All right, we're moving on, and I see we have Christine there. So,
Okay.
How are you?
do we have a document from broadband? Yes.
Do we have people in New Hampshire nursing homes? Is that what that item one is? That we just did, or I missed it, so.
What? Well,
Statutory nursing home,
NH stands for nursing home.
pardon?
Stands for-
It's nursing home, not New Hampshire.
Sorry.
Oh,
That's what,
So, well,
oh my goodness.
But we did have people in New Hampshire.
so what rate is that?
It varies by facility.
Determined by?
Yeah, there's a rate setting process that uses a base year and then calculates. It. A lot depends on
and
size
and
and.
base year was 2021.
Yeah.
So base
They
year
use a private non-medical.
3 years old
One.
and they increased it
I'm
by.
trying to get one set up and we lost three.
Yeah, part of the problem is they can't.
going now?
There's a number of things that people establish. One is nursing, one is they can't get medical.
Congratulations.
Any of these nursing.
I'm retiring in 6 weeks.
I need to get our vice chair here. I see Christine is waiting patiently. And I believe you just finished testifying in the House, so, we do have your packet.
My wife is
but,
leaving.
We'll
I spent a long time in
probably
Florida and then.
not go through every single slide, but certainly want to get, kind of the highlights and, between now and, well, we're gonna get started.
You want me to run down the transportation?
Well, find out if that stayed behind
Have fun.
Is that,
Do you want us or no? BCB?
Christine, or that's wires.
For my committee broadband?
Yes, yes,
I was
we do.
looking for Andy.
Oh, I don't know where Andy is.
Okay.
I'll run.
Are you like your new stuff?
So Tom, do you want to sit here, I guess?
Sure.
The witness seat?
All right.
The rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me know when we get started. I'll kick it off and then,
Yes, absolutely. We're just trying to get our committee, back in their seats, so you know what it's like, we'll leave, getting them back.
then I can present the slides from my computer if you'd like.
Yeah, sure, okay.
I did send, Christine, I sent the presentation.
No, we all have a, they have it.
Okay, excellent.
She put it on the screen though, so Christine doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, Hannah can do that. Thank you so much.
Christine for the card, she will be,
Well, we can do both.
all got it.
All right, you
I've
still
got
have Dale.
We've got it for hard copy.
Right, I get it.
So,
I'll need it on.
Christine, we have this, slide deck. And so actually, might be good. We like, since you're not here in person, and I know you're gonna turn it over, so for the part that you wanna do the introductions, we're not gonna put the slides up. We'd rather have the opportunity to look at you and hear your comments, and then we'll go to the you know, other people who are here to testify. So I'm gonna let you open it up, and then you can decide who goes next. I'll leave that up totally how you want to work it.
Okay, yeah, so I'll give the highlights and then Tom will provide the details in terms of the budget numbers.
Okay.
And so of course, I'm Christine Hultquist. I'm the executive director of the Vermont Community Broadband Board. And our numbers person is Tom Malinowski. Tom's sitting in front of you, and Tony Clitheroe is our general counsel, also here to provide additional detail if you need.
I knew she worked at AOT.
I know, Christine has something to do with that.
Apparently, okay.
Well, we're glad we have her from AOT. So. And I'll just start by saying, it's been a pleasure working with the PSD. We really tremendous support from the Public Service Department. And if you look at, broadband as a basis for, for decarbonizing our electric grid, as well as solving our cell problems, it makes sense that we're housed there and we work closely together. So I'm very happy with our relationship. And of course, just to catch up where we are, 2022 was really a year where the CUDs, the ISPs were putting their plans together, getting the make-ready plans in place, to doing engineering plans. 2023, we did pretty significant construction. If you look at the end of 2022, 30% of Vermonters had 30% of Vermonter addresses had accesses to fiber. End of 23, it went to 40%. We plan on doing about double that work this year. So things are moving right along in terms of getting every Vermonter access to fiber. Of course, getting access to fiber is one of our goals. The second goal is making it affordable. And then the third goal, which we'll talk a little about digital equity, is to maximize the positive social impact of those investments. So if you go to your third slide, fourth slide, I talked about the mission. Let's skip over to the fifth slide. We're going to talk about the capacity we have with the grants we had. We've done, and I'll talk about some of the significant work we've done in achieving funding. I'll talk about the performance, I've already talked about connections and some of the oversight and support we're receiving. So some of the highlights, if you skip the slide, whatever, highlights, when we talk about Vermonters benefiting from broadband, that's the positive social impact. It really, broadband, of course, is impacts all areas of our lives today. And if we look at the people who are not connected to broadband today, there are significantly higher number of lower income people. So the broadband, the digital divide is the economic divide. And our work is not only getting people connected, I'll talk about the digital equity component as well. The next slide is Tom, I'll let you take this next slide, which is talking about the Act 71 grant funding. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so on that slide there, it shows that we have two major expenditures, that being the pre-construction, the construction grants. So on that slide there, it has like total amount of obligations and expenditures as of end of calendar year FY 23. So well, current flow would be like CY or calendar year. Anyways, end of December 2023 is what we have obligated and expended at that moment. And then after that, go ahead, Kristen, sorry.
Yeah, that's at 150 million. So you can see we've still got about $20 million to obligate.
So one of the things, this is ARPA funding, right? We have.
Yeah.
And everybody's worried about the timeline and making sure that the money's expended. It seems like you're on a good trajectory to make sure you spend every dime you can.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes, and if you have some if some money is not obligated by others by the end of the year, we can obligate it. So we'll even take more if it's available.
Okay, well, I'll put you on the list.
I'm sure you got a long one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. It's getting longer every day. Nevertheless, this is a lot of work and it's good to see what you've got obligated. And then
Slide after that is breakdown of the pre-construction and the construction line items that were from the slide prior to that. So let's see, show me sure I have the correct slide right. So on slide 8 is all of the obligations and expenditures, and then on slide 9, I broke it down to two major expenditures: the pre-construction and construction grant line items, and that. So you have the totals and obligations.
okay.
What's in the pre-construction? Is that even like ordering the fiber?
Yeah, the pre-construction funding was used for, I remember I talked at the kickoff about 2022, doing the engineering, getting the make-ready work done, and we also pre-purchased materials with pre-construction.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So, and that pre-purchase materials really helped us jump the gun. I'm down here in Philadelphia with the state broadband leaders. We all meet twice a year, and we're way ahead of the rest of the nation as a result of the work. That credit, a lot of that credit goes to the legislature for 2015 forming the CUDs, Act 71 in 2021, and then of course the result of that was we were able to get a jump start on the rest of the nation.
Oh, it's nice to get some positive feedback, Christine.
So can
We oftentimes get poked in the eye.
we bring some of their unobligated funds to Vermont?
I don't know. We're gonna try to get all the funding we can. We put back the money that we took to temporarily move to fund the BGAP program. Budget adjustments, putting that back. The BEAD grant originally didn't come through. Is that correct? Or maybe you can give us.
Yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to the BEAD funding. So
Yeah.
we'll keep going, right?
Okay. So everybody's gonna be looking at what projects are in their area.
Yep, I will get to that as well. Yep. So why don't we just skip to that? We'll go to the slide where slide 12. I think that's where you're going now. Slide 12 talks about where, if we look at our communication union districts, we have 10 districts with 214 member towns, and 6 of those districts are in construction. In fact, Southern Vermont, which is your lower left-hand corner, they're now 100% connected to fiber. So we're making great progress. But the question around the white area, which is those towns that are not affiliated with CUD, we are committed to 100% universal service, whether the town's in a CUD or not, of course. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that those other areas we're working with private providers as well as some of the towns to make sure they're connected. Many of those towns are pretty close to universal service already. So, and some of them are already universal service. What we do is we work with the private providers such as Consolidated, VTEL, TDS Telecom, GoNetspeed, they're already have plans to connect areas to fiber within the next couple of years, then we don't go there. We want to make best use of taxpayer funding. So, and that's the other thing that's happened as a result of Act 71. You know, some of these private providers had until 2032 to get connected to fiber, but as a result of the work, they're now going to get connected in the next 2 years. So we're really moving along much quicker than I expected, and it really is because of the cooperation of the private providers in order to achieve the goals. Because these private providers, they want to get off their copper networks as well. So the answer to that is yes. Our goal, we will get every address passed by fiber, giving people the opportunity. That just gives you the detail of the other towns. So any questions on that? I'm sure that's, you know, you're representing those towns. So if you've got any questions on that, just ask now.
Okay. You want Tom to take over?
Yep.
Hey, we've kind of skipped around, maybe
Yeah, we'll go. Well, let me just hit the long-term financial sustainability. Every grantee we ensure has a sustainable business plan. We want to make sure that these ISPs and these CUDs are operating 10 and 20 years from now. So we are working with an outside firm, CTC, to also, you know, we as a staff take a deep dive on these financial plans before they go to the board for approval. They also get an outside look from some skilled professionals from CTC, and then our board reviews them as well. And of course, we've got a pretty seasoned board there too. Next slide, the map challenge. I want to brag a little bit because this is the work that.
Christine,
wait a minute, Senator Westman wants to interrogate you.
yeah, no, I want to back up and say, in the towns without communication union districts, I do have Fletcher, and when you're back and someone on your staff, if I could sit down and talk about where they are, that would be helpful.
Yeah, Fletcher is a specific use case. I'd be glad to talk to you about that. I'll reach out
When
to
you get back, I would like to talk about that.
Yep, I'm happy to talk to you about that.
Oh. I'm glad to look at slide 15 because that was such a topic of discussion, and that was to get everybody to report the inaccuracy of the map and the impact it had on money coming to the state. So it's really nice to see that yellow, that the result of the challenge, which I know it was on Front Porch Forum, and you know, you really get a lot to say, you know, challenge this. And so we got 100, we received 229 million, 100 more than we anticipated. So that's really, that's a testament to Vermonters, you know.
Yes.
All the local officials really saying, get these mistakes corrected, because that really is a tremendous amount of money that was brought to Vermont as a result of that. So I guess we should commend all the Vermonters who submitted corrections on the map.
We just
Yes,
celebrate.
that's exactly
celebrate.
what I want to say. Thank you.
That's what's wrong in this building, is we don't celebrate any success. We're very negative. We always focus on.
Well, I'm focusing on.
I know you are, but
the
most people
success.
aren't.
Oh, I
Most
know.
people aren't,
Oh,
and that's
great success.
Part of the problem.
Oh, great. Well, we'll try to be upbeat, but it's nice to get some, you know, good news. And also, it just shows how much was at stake. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we were really, if you look at per capita, you know, we're way up there in terms of the numbers of what the money that we receive per capita. I mean, Alaska was ahead of us, but they have a lot more, you know, unserved folks. But we certainly did very well as a result of the work of Vermonters here.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll let you get back to the whatever slide you want to go.
Okay, we're additional funding. Just a quick word about the USF, Universal Service Funding. That allows us, that's a fund that allows us to meet the Act 71 requirements. If you look at the IIJA and the BEAD, there's some pretty strict requirements that some of those don't necessarily support Act 71. So we're that USF funding is allowing us the flexibility to use those funds to meet Act 71.
And
Go ahead. Andy.
will the CUDs pay that's the USF as well?
Yeah, the CUDs, that helps us provide support to the CUDs. The BEAD program requires us to be totally neutral and not favor the CUDs, but the USF allows us to provide funding to the CUDs to help them. Specifically right now, that between the USF and the NBRC funds, we're using those funds to get the CUDs in shape.
Those funds actually have a sort of a waterfall of how the money goes.
Right.
And are you number one on that list?
No, we're actually at the end of the list, but
No,
but it is.
Number one.
Well, we have 78% right off the top, so we have a guarantee.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Yep.
70%.
17.
17 of the.
I think to have you put you on record, so if anyone's looking, they know what your comment was. So would you?
Yeah, Tony, why don't you explain how that works, that waterfall, if you can?
So I'm Tony Clifford, I'm the general counsel for the Vermont Community Broadband Board. Under the statute, the VCBB gets 17%, or I shouldn't say that because that's the legislation that's currently being considered right now in House Ways and Means. The current statute has it expressed as 0.4% added to the 2.4%, but it's 17%. It's the same number, essentially just expressed in a percentage. But we get that off the top from the USF, and that's, state funds that come from the telecom companies.
Yeah.
Including the wireless providers?
I believe so, but I'm not certain about that.
I just didn't know if there was any part of the telecom world that wasn't paying that, like the mobile providers or somebody like.
Well, from what I understand is, what we have on the slide is, the Vermont USF statute provides imposition of universal service surcharge of 2.4% on all retail communication services provided to a Vermont address. So outside of that, I don't really know, but we research and get back to you.
It's just like how you define telecommunications. Who fails within that definition of that?
That's public service department would do that.
Or that's done in statute. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, we can check on that.
Yeah, it would be the regulated telecom company, so.
Which is not the wireless
I'm
provider.
not certain about the
Or
wireless.
the cable providers, they're
Yes,
federal,
definitely.
so they don't
Yeah,
definitely, yes, or definitely no, they pay.
I believe they do. I think most of it is coming from the cable companies.
I think so, and I think that's part of the problem because public access is number 3 on that list of distribution. And there's not a lot. I think 911 might be on that list.
Yes,
as well.
And
So it's sort of a listing of how that money goes out.
I like that you use the word waterfall.
Well, in this case, it's appropriate.
Yeah, and just to let you know, that USF fund is also being used to help us with a connectivity program. We're looking at a program for how we fund drops for low income people too, because it's one thing to provide affordable internet, but if you have a drop that you can't afford to get your home connected, we'll be that's also part of the challenge for low income folks.
Well, I know the other challenge is that federal subsidy efforts are trying to get that extended, but you sent us an email. I think it was a $6 million benefit that's flowing to Vermont households who meet the income test for that subsidy on their broadband or.
Yeah, there's actually, as of the last time I looked, there's 25,773 Vermonters enrolled in the Affordability Connect program, which provides them $30 a month on their bill. And of course, if you take that 25,773, multiply it by 30 times 12, you come up with a $9.3 million benefit right now. So that's a really important program, and hopefully the federal government.
Gee, I thought you were only suggesting the need was 6 million and something. And you're no. I'll have to go look at it. Anyway, it's on the list.
Okay, right.
Looking 6, right? Upside down to 9.
Yeah, maybe I was looking at it upside down, or I was on my head.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, obviously, we monitor that closely. Okay, the
Oh,
the IIJ, we talked about $229 million. That is where the match comes in. When we talk about that $229 million, it requires a 25% match from the state, which is where that $30 million from the BAA comes in. If you take the math of 229 and you multiply it times 0.25, it comes out to be 57.25 million, I think. So we're asking for the BAA is committed 30 million. The total needed to match the 229 million is a little over 57 million. But we're expecting to get that through some of the private telecom providers as well as using some of our ARPA funds. We recognize, we're not asking for more because we recognize, I recognize how the hard work that you folks have to do in terms of, do you fund, housing, homeless programs, food programs? We're going to work really hard to get the additional funds from other sources is what
Well, we appreciate that. Can you use the ARPA though for match? Or
Yeah,
do we-
ARPA can be used as match. That's right. Yes.
All right, Senator Westman.
So this kind of gives me a field of the overall. When you started, you talked about allocated funds. And at the end, that there will be some reallocation. What's the overall amount that we have allocated, we think will be spent? What will be unspent and can be reallocated?
Oh, she's gonna spend it all.
Oh yeah, we're talking about so we estimate that the total project is going to be about $630 million. And we have, we have a little over 500 million in grants total. So there's still that gap that needs to be filled through debt service. For every, for the debt service is that's where the affordability issue comes in, right? We're trying to serve these areas. If you look at serving Chittenden County, it costs about $2,000 an address, a little less than $2,000 an address. We're trying to serve these areas at $10,000 an address. So building that business case is a challenge to make it affordable for these rural Vermonters.
Well, I'll give my more specific question. In Lamoille FiberNet is going to in their rollout, their initial grants probably not going to be quite enough. Will there be an opportunity for them to come back and ask for more? And what's the ability of to reallocate and help them true up to get to everybody?
Well, that in their grant, in their partnership with Fidium, they're supposedly supposed to get to everybody with the existing grant we gave them. So you may want to check with them. As far as I know,
it, they're probably not going to be able to do that. And at some point, I would have questions about that.
Well, you can add it to the list when you meet on Fletcher.
Yeah, that's right. We'll talk to you more in detail then on our one-on-one meeting.
The grant agreement would be
We'll talk to you more means that.
We better not be.
Or it could be, well,
No.
no, it would take more money and we're the money committee and we haven't got any money.
All the money.
Again, no.
Yeah, okay, we'll
That
keep.
comes down to.
So we're skipping over to slide 20. I want to talk briefly about the digital equity planning and implementation grant. Important part of this BEAD plan is to take care of the digital divide. The digital divide is the economic divide, And we're now in a plan to, how do we help those people that are unserved today who are part of underprivileged communities get connected. So we've identified 8 underprivileged communities, for example, non-English speaking communities, incarcerated and those on parole, and other communities. And so there's 8 communities, and we're now drilling down even further. For example, I'm a member of 3 of those communities, but I don't need the help. So we're looking at how do we get down to these communities and provide the support and the help. And that's, it's getting them connected, but it's also providing devices to those that need it and providing the support and the training for how to use those devices so that they can cross over that economic divide.
Christine, I would agree. You don't need it. I don't need it. I don't know. I mean, I'm old. I don't suppose that fits in there, but.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it
Yeah,
does?
that fits in. I'm old too, so we
Yeah.
fit.
Old and rural.
And I'm rural and
Yep.
so forth. But my question is then with
This
such
is
a,
aging, I am aging.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, the challenge is with a limited pot of money, how you, create whatever the criteria is for who really does need the help here, as opposed to sorting out, those who don't. Are you talking about like an income test or some, household income, or, what are your thoughts about how you're gonna approach that?
Yes.
No, I said a household, what they're,
Oh, the household income.
yeah, not a tax,
No,
but.
you weren't putting an income tax.
No, I was talking about like, 200% of federal poverty
FPL.
or, the FPL. Yeah, FPL, right. So I just was wondering what your thoughts are and how you're gonna target that assistance to the individuals within those populations who truly are, in financial need.
Yeah, that's actually, income is part of it, but also including, energy burden and other things that are along with that. That's part of targeting those eight populations. The census data is, first of all, we know it's wrong, but the next part of this plan that we're doing is how do we're working with partners, such as the University of Vermont and others, to actually get more refined data. And we've done part of our digital outreach is actually going out and meeting with those people to, those different communities to identify how we get to those people that are truly in need, and not people like myself who are not in need.
Mhm.
That's what the plan is all about.
Well, yeah, it's a task certainly to, do that. Although there's certain probably populations that are easily identified because they're beneficiaries of maybe some form of public
Right.
assistance and already have, an income test that they're needing. So, a lot of partnerships there as well. Okay, anything else? We can see your ups and downs here.
Yep, I'll just hit the challenges and
And the nice
opportunities.
part is there's no general fund here. It's all special and federal.
Right. So just to talk about some of the pressures, the inflationary pressures, like anything else, continue to be a thing we're focusing on, not a problem, but it's a thing we're aware of and we keep focused on. We know that with $42.5 billion coming into the economy over the next year, we're happy to be ahead of the curve. But at the same time, we know it's law of supply and demand. As the rest of the nation gets on board, we expect to see some inflation, higher than average inflation for the materials we're seeking. And also there's the Buy America, Build America Act, which of course we all support. But at the same time, we can't buy from the cheaper sources like Vietnam and others. So that'll put some pressure on. Nobody really knows how what impact that's going to have on costs. There's, down here in Philly, as part of the state broadband leaders, the NTIA has somebody who's looking at the whole supply chain and looking at where those constraints are going to be. Access to capital, because these CUDs are new, we need to help. I talked about the gap, we have 500+ million, but it's going to be a $630 million project. The rest of that needs to get funded. So we're helping with the CUDs, focus on that. Access to materials will be impacted by lead times. Access to labor, we've got a really robust workforce development program. We're actually the first state in the nation to carry out a fiber apprenticeship program. We're working with the construction companies to get people placed. Vermont Works for Women has got a 150 women available for us to put into training. So we're looking for, with our low 1.9% unemployment rate, we've got to look to other avenues rather than just the traditional thing of put the postings up and hope people come. So we've got a pretty robust workforce training program to deal with that. And of course, we're down here with the rest of the state broadband leaders putting pressure on the FCC and the NTIA to speed it up, because there have been many delays coming from them. So those are the constraints we're facing. We can get into the budget reports. Tom, why don't you take that over at slide 25? I don't know how much detail you want to go in that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So for ups and downs, there's not really many changes. It's a pretty boring budget, I guess.
No, the work is exciting, but the
Oh, yeah,
budget is
definitely, yeah.
exciting. And of course, the fact that you're dealing with special funds and not competing with limited general fund helps as well.
Yeah. So really the only change from really last year is that we're reducing some of our grants out.
I
So
see that. Yeah. How are you doing with staffing then? Are you fully staffed at the board now?
We are fully staffed. We're very pleased with, that we don't pay the competitive wages the private sector does, but I'm very pleased with the staff because we've got very mission focused people. And you've got a couple of them sitting in front of you right now, but yeah, we're fully staffed.
Great.
You're saving money on space?
Yes, we are. We're by being, of course, if Vermont Broadband Board can't be virtual, then what can we say, right? Yeah.
Oh, all right. Fully staffed and
How many people?
free house, and free space.
How many staff?
With including myself, we have a staff of 9 right now.
And they're all remote 100% of the time. Right?
Yeah, we have one office at 112 State Street, but the nice thing about being remote, we get some really talented folks located across the state. So we have, and also since we're serving the entire state, it helps us reach out to our communities because we've got a couple people in the Woodstock area, Lincoln, a couple in Burlington, all throughout the state.
Right.
On slide 70 or 37, sorry. It has all of our positions we're planning to have as of right now for FY25, and I currently count 10.
So where's the director?
Executive director.
Way down. Oh, you're way down at the bottom of the list.
That's where it should be.
Apparently.
The lawyers. The director and the lawyers.
Yeah, that's right. We're here to carry the load, not to create the load.
But we do not have a broadband project developer, right, Christine? That's listed here.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why it's 9 and not 10. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. The broadband project. When I say we're fully staffed, we just lost our broadband project developer like last week. So, but yeah.
Well, thank you. So you're taking time out of a conference then to come here today and be available to us. So we really appreciate that. Hope that the conference is good, and it's nice to hear that Vermont is right up there relative to the rest of the nation. And I think, So are the states using that CUD model?
No, we're the only state that has a CUD model. I think, I did a panel presentation today and it was very, I think, but I think the rest of the states wish they had thought of it.
Oh, well, great.
Maine has something close, right? The buds or whatever, they're not exactly the same, but it's some kind of hybrid.
Well, we appreciate your making yourself available. Have a lot of fun in the it's a city of brotherly love.
Philadelphia.
Yes.
Yeah.
The place that boos Santa Claus.
Oh, well. Thank you.
Yep.
I realize it was short notice, but we're trying to get testimony and get through the budget as fast as we can, and appreciate your all being here today. Obviously, 2 people are in person, so not even remote, so that's kind of nice as well. So
Right.
Good luck, and hopefully we can take advantage of all the money that can come our way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And thank you for all your support.
Any questions of Christine before we let her go? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Yep, I know.
So with that, I think we've finished the budget testimony for today. I guess Christine, we're just sort of back up to the man, so to speak. And